would point, and the horizon and the little island are way down at the bottom. And what David Dewey could do was, with wet watercolor, make the atmosphere seamless gradation of color, a seamless gradation of color. And he, up at Callbeck Gallery in Rockland, he had some real big ones. And they were absolutely seamless, the sky coming down. I couldn't imagine it because it doesn't happen for me.
So tell the story about Joe and
David.
David.
Joe was teaching in
Philadelphia.
Was he in Baltimore?
He could no, it's in that area.
I wonder, I can't remember which school it was he was teaching at, but he used to, once a week, he used to take his students out to paint. And he took them out in the fall to a park just to sit there and paint. And he would come around and have a look. Probably didn't say much. But David Dewey was a student, and he came over to ask Joe something, and he came up behind Joe. Joe was sitting in his camp stool, painting a orange maple, one of those big sugar maples that have been completely struck orange. And David didn't say anything. He just watched Joe touch the watercolor to the paper, staining the paper in this uniquely Joe way, this humble way. And David told me that's when he knew he was going to be an artist for the rest of his life. Just watching that painting. And subsequently, after Joe died, David became an executive curator of Joe's work up in that barn. And it was at that time that Ron Gregory bought the firehouse in Damariscotta, which was a little clothing store right across from the church, but it had a tower where they used to hang the hoses back in the day. And Ron got it all cleaned up and painted up inside. And then David would put on shows there. And he did a show of Joe's watercolor. And it wasn't this big a painting either. But when you opened the door to come into the building, and there was a wall, that you could walk around and paint all along the sides. But in the center of the wall was this maple tree. And he had found it going through the piles and piles of works on paper that Joe had left. He must have spent months going through them. And he found me, which are the sketches for this painting from 1968 that Mary gave me. It's the Hudson River in Winter, it's called. But that's a studio painting. He wasn't out painting in the middle of winter. But these are the sketches that he did on site. And they're interesting to look at, to compare with the final.
Interested in seeing other work of his, you can go online and see different shows that he had in the past. I think we feel here that he's a little underappreciated, and we're very excited about having him in this gallery, and maybe we'll hopefully do something more in the future with more of his work because
Back in the 2000s, in the summertime, when Hilton Kramer of
oh,
Criterion
Oh my
magazine
yeah, and the
Was
New
he-
York Times.
and the New York Times, who lived in Waldoboro and used to come down and walk around Damariscotta with a big straw hat. The Farnsworths, under Chris Crossman, was having an Andrew Wyeth blockbuster. And, and Brown Top in Damariscotta was having a show of Joe's work. And in the Free Press from Rockland, which is a free newspaper, in the letters column, these two gentlemen got to commenting on each other's shows. And the short take is that Hilton Kramer, who was very well known in the art world, thought Joe's work was far superior.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Geoffrey or Yvette or me? Martha?
Thank you very much for sharing your remembrances of this very interesting painter. So talking a little bit, you said he was born in 1925,
Mm-hmm.
and would you say maybe his experience, I mean, this week is the 80th anniversary of D-Day in France, so would you say maybe he, having been in the infantry in World War II, might have had some connection or relation to his being so quiet? I mean, I'm just imagining this, but wondering if you had any personal thoughts about that, if you care to speak about that.
It could very well be. I've often wondered about why so many paintings of rocks, and that war experience may have
Yeah.
put that in front of him. I don't know. He wasn't an unknown artist. He was a member of the National Academy of Design in New York, which is the big thing all artists want to be in. He was an associate, and then he was voted full membership, and he was an NA for decades. Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? Tom?
Just a short, inconsequential observation. You said that Joe was a humble man. Now, I had occasion to visit his house on North Mountain Road a couple of times because I was the monitor for the property, the conservation easement. I would go there in the fall, and he and Mary invited me in to the house one time because I was waiting around. It was a bad morning for somebody who was going to do the walkabout with me. And Joe Fiore was a humble man. His house was a very humble house too. I understand Mary was a woman of means. Actually, they could have done better, but that house was quite unimproved. They lived in it for years.
Yeah.
Totally fitting. His studio being a barn, it was a barn. The thing that impressed me is that the path down to the barn from the house, nobody had ever cut any of the grass. The grass was this high, and there was one little path through it. Yeah.
Ed Bean in his essay talks about Black Rock College group a little bit, and he refers to Ilya Bolakowski as a mentor because maybe serendipitous, but a silkscreen of Ilya Bolakowski was auctioned today at Rachel Davis Fine Arts in Cleveland, and sold for the minimum price. And I was tempted, but I wasn't online at the time. But can you speak to any acknowledgement by Joe of his mentors? Did he speak of Ilya? Did he speak of, was Robert Rauschenberg there?
Yeah.
He was there, right?
No,
He never said a word to me.
Oh,
No.
no, it was.
I'd read about it. I also read about John Cage. I didn't realize Joe had studied with John Cage. I wonder what the lessons were like.
What did they talk about?
Silence.
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 Yes, with the string bean on the piano string. Yeah.
Well, at the Black Mountain College show in Boston we went to, there was a display of John Cage's schoolwork for something. It was almost, it was
Well,
like
but
unreadable.
at the opening, they had somebody do one
Dewey,
of his,
right.
you know, which I got invited to because I like them paintings, which was pretty outrageous from me.
Is there a biography of Joe where he would talk
Well,
about his influences?
More,
Maybe in here,
it's more
Richard.
interviews and
maybe in this dossier. That's a funny name. They would call it a dossier.
they make a dossier of every student that went with their plant, and
Oh,
they're
it's so frightening.
Get ready.
Dewey did a CD of Joe's life.
Oh, I did.
I've got it. You must have it too.
maybe in my files.
Is there anything you'd like to say to sort of sum up your friendship and knowledge of him, Joe?
Well, I thought he was a wonderful man, and at the end of this CD that David Dewey made, it's Joe sitting at a piano playing one of the Bach well-tempered clavier
Oh, wow.
preludes.
Oh,
And so
I would love
I knew music was a part of his life, but he could also play it. So that was wonderful.
my feeling is that he was just so, he was quiet because he listened. He not only listened to sound, but he just saw, he wanted to really take in, especially nature, I think. And he was so profoundly dedicated to preserving land and nature. It's just, I think that was what was his soul.
There's a little corner of Joe that has Japanese aesthetic. On you'll see it if you see a bunch of the watercolors in particular.
Want to do a show?
I only have one painting.
No, we have to.
Martha, you had something else?
Well, maybe it's not totally related to Mr. Fiore as a painter, but one day when I was sitting in the gallery here, we had a visitor who was